My name is Noelle Fishkind-Ross. I'm 40 years old and currently in a good place in my life and my family, but it wasn't always that way. About 20 years ago, I met my first husband, and I was very impressed. He was sweet and charming and seemed like a wonderful man. There were some red flags though, looking back, that I missed. He had been abusive in previous relationships, and he was a bit of a womanizer, and seemed though that he was ready to settle down and that he would be a good guy to start a family with. So we did that, and he started having affairs about 2 years into the relationship. And then during my first pregnancy is when he began to get violent. And it started with a lot of pushing and shoving, and then turned into choking and throwing me across the room and just everything else that you could imagine. I kind of got lost at that point in time. I felt like every part of my body was in pain, physically, mentally, emotionally. Like it felt like every soul, every cell in my body was just screaming constantly. It was misery. And this continued for a couple of years, and ultimately ended in me losing my mental health, my friends and family. I became very, very isolated. I had horrible depression and anxiety. It was a nightmare that I never imagined I would find myself in. I had not previously been exposed to domestic violence, didn't even know much about it, and could not have ever seen a relationship like this coming. But I found myself in it, and not only in it, but trapped in it. And I didn't know how to leave. And he told me that if I ever tried to leave, he would take my children away, that he would tell the police, whatever he wanted to tell them, and that he would convince them, and that if I tried to leave with the children, he would file kidnapping charges on me. So I felt very, very trapped, and not only in a physical way, but mentally and emotionally, I was broken at that point, and I had lost myself. I had given all of my power away in the relationship, and I didn't seem to even know how to find my way out. So, moving forward, there was a breaking point for me. Some people would argue that a husband cannot rape his wife, but I know for a fact that happened one day. It was painful. I was screaming and begging for him to stop, and it was the final breaking straw for me. It was as though he had finally taken everything from me. And it was just a control move on his part, and it worked. And I had a mental break, and for the next month, I did not even realize the time was passing. I kind of checked out, and I remember that day feeling like my body was not a safe place anymore, and my soul needed to escape. It had to go somewhere safe. But about a month later, I seemed to kind of come to and realize what had happened, and I was horrified, and I wanted to seek some help. But I knew that if I did, it would be used against me in regards to getting custody of my children. And I had a moment with God where I just pleaded with him, just begged for something to give. I felt like I was holding on to one final string, and that I was not going to be around much longer. my ex-husband had put guns to my head and told me he was going to kill me if I ever tried to leave him. And I was just terrified. So God did meet me there. He did meet me on the floor of my house that day, and I pleaded with him to save me. And at the time I was pregnant again by my then husband. And not only did he save me, but it was as though he escorted me out of the marriage. He breathed his power. God breathed his power back into me. He gave me the power that I had given away. He gave it back to me, and I was able to begin finding my way out. I was able to finally get the courts to listen to me. I had about 6 police reports at that point in time, so I had plenty of evidence. But I finally got the family courts to listen to me, and within 6 months, the courts literally paid for my divorce so that they could give me custody of the children, because at that point in time, they were no longer allowed to be around him because of the level of abuse. I was able to escape with full custody of my children. God rescued us, and we came back to California, where I was from, and I was in heaven. I thought, like, I had dreamed of this. I had imagined so many times that we would escape, that we would get away, and it was just a fantasy. And yet here we were, and I thought everything was gonna be great now, and we were gonna have this new life, and everything was gonna be safe and happy again. And once the euphoria of that started wearing off, I had gotten 2 jobs and got an apartment for me and my babies, and was doing everything I could to survive as a single mom. But I didn't realize how broken I was inside. And after about a year, everything became unraveling. Everything started crumbling. I just shattered into so many pieces, I didn't even know how to put them back together. And it was this horrible realization that I was destroyed inside, and that I was gonna have to face that, and I was gonna have to go through healing. And I was going to have to face those very, very painful memories and come to terms with them and find healing so I could be whole again. So I wish I could have gotten the help I needed right away, but in fact, I sunk into a very deep depression for 2 years, horrible panic attacks, ending in trips to the ER because I would just pass out from not being able to breathe. And when I found myself in the welfare office asking for help just to meet my children's basic needs, I realized that I was fighting alone and that I needed help, and I couldn't do it on my own anymore. So I reached out for help, actually through a welfare program. They connected me with domestic violence counseling, and I was able to get counseling therapy every week for a year. I did individual and group, and it was incredible. It changed everything. Not at first. Initially it was hard, and it was painful, and it was scary, and it didn't feel that good to relive and talk about these horrible experiences that I'd never spoken out loud before, because nobody had ever wanted to hear the gory details. But I was able to just share them in a safe space and realize what had actually happened to me with a trained therapist who could help me reframe what had happened and help me find my way out so that I wasn't still living there. And it was kind of like pulling the abuse out by the roots. It started losing its power over me. and wasn't able to haunt me anymore. Not so much. Day by day, little by little, it got better. I could feel myself just stretching and growing and starting to feel a little bit more normal again. I remember wondering if I would ever feel normal again, if I would feel okay again. And through that process during that year, I started feeling like I could be okay again and stabilizing. And following that, I threw myself into inner healing prayer with my church, and that kind of took it to a whole different level of healing. And I began sharing my story. I felt like God was telling me that although I never intended for this to happen to you, you're going to use it. I'm going to change it. I'm going to transform it. As you put it in my hands, I'm going to turn it into a wonderful gift that you can use to help others that are going through similar things and that don't have anyone who understands. And that's what I've been doing ever since. And God led me to an incredible, wonderful man who took on my children as though they were his own. And then we had some more. So now we've got 4 boys. He's the kind of man that I didn't even think existed. So I'm not sure how I got so lucky this time around, but I feel very, very fortunate to have this second go, this second chance at life and a family, and to feel safe and to see and experience what love is really supposed to be. So I've become very, very involved in nonprofits. God really showed me that even though it feels so good to have escaped that nightmare, you can't leave those women back there that you know are there. Not personally, I don't know them per se, but I know that there are so many women stuck in that cycle and they need help. They need help out. And God has shown me that this is going to be my ministry. And that's been a little bit intimidating at times, but it's become amazing, something incredible. It's transformed that part of me that was so damaged beyond repair, that felt so powerless. And now I own those experiences. I own what happened to me, and I'm using it on a regular basis for God's glory and to change it for other women, for other families, just one at a time. And that's incredible.